Welcome back to the One Winning Pod, Ravens History Corner. All right, Ravens flock. This week we have the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Cleveland to take on the Deshaun Watson for the first time in the Cleveland Browns uniform, a game that the Ravens, they need a win. They need a win. We don't know who's going to be at quarterback for the Ravens. It looks like Huntley was on track to start, but you never know with the concussions, even though it seems that he's past the protocol. We'll still have to see. Obviously, we're going to need a huge game from the defense here as well as the running game. We've got J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards back, but should be an exciting game, a game that could come down to the final play. And if it did, that would not be something that is a stranger to this matchup, particularly in Cleveland. You know, we talk so much when we talk about the Ravens and the AFC North about games between the Steelers and the Bengals, and there's really no surprise with that. You know, generally speaking, in most years, those are the teams that the Ravens have had to have the biggest battles with in order to gain supremacy in the AFC North, jockey there for playoff positioning. But, you know, there's been a lot of exciting games, a lot of great matchups between the Ravens and the Browns in Cleveland. It's a spot where the Ravens have had a little bit of a harder time than you would expect, given the fact of how lopsided the record is in the Ravens' favor in this matchup. But yeah, definitely some great wins here. Very exciting games in Ravens history. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. This week we're going to look at the top 5 games in Ravens history that took place in Cleveland between the Ravens and the Browns. And let's just get right to it. We're going to start out at number 5 on this list. 2002, Week 5. This game took place on Sunday Night Football. The Ravens in this game, you know, they got out to a fast start. Not a fast start, but they got off to a big lead against Cleveland. It took them until the second quarter in order to score a touchdown, but once they did, got the offense clicking, they got up to a 23-0 lead, which they brought into the fourth quarter. The lead was thanks to 3 Matt Stover field goals and 2 touchdown passes from Chris Redmond to wide receiver Brandon Stokely, but the Browns, they would charge back in this game, and they would score 2 touchdowns as well as get a 2-point conversion, cut the game to 23-15. The Ravens would score a field goal, but the Browns, they would charge back again, and they would score another touchdown, cut the game 26-21, and then recover the onside kick with less than a minute to go in the game. But the magic would run out for the Browns there. Ed Reed, who's then a rookie, would pick the ball off on the final play of the game as the Browns were trying to make a play in the red zone, and in a move that would be the first in Ed's young career, but something we would soon become accustomed to. Reed refused to kneel, but instead just returned the ball as far as he could, despite the fact that the game was clearly over at that time. Ended up returning it 59 yards. Didn't matter except to look cool, but the Ravens would win the game 26-21 in a pretty exciting matchup in a season that not too many fans remember, understandably given what is kind of sandwiched in between when you look at the Ravens seasons, but still a good game in a season that is not remembered as well. At number 4 on this list, this was a season that was remembered quite well by Ravens fans. 2006, Week 3, the Ravens travel to Cleveland. They're off to a hot 2-0 start on the year. Cleveland coming in at 0-2, but you know, despite that, the Ravens, they found themselves down 14-3 in this game, going into the fourth quarter, just having a very difficult day on offense, despite the fact on defense, the Ravens did a great job at getting back to the quarterback. They were able to sack the Browns 7 times in this game. That included 2 sacks from Bart Scott and 1.5 from both Kelly Gregg and Trevor Price. Just a suffocating effort from this defense. But still, they needed a response from their offense in this fourth quarter and able to come out with a win. And right at the beginning of the fourth quarter, Steve McNair would pass the ball to Todd Heap in the end zone for a 3-yard touchdown. The Ravens would get 2 more field goals, but they still needed a little more to get the win. And that's where the defense came up big. The Ravens were able to recover a fumble on just the first play of the Browns' final drive of the game, and then that was it. They were able to get into field goal range and kick the field goal for the win. The Ravens would escape the game 15-14. At number 3 on this list, this is another game we've talked about before on this show. 2008, Week 9, a very interesting game, back-and-forth game between Joe Flacco-led Baltimore Ravens offense, as rookie Joe Flacco at the time, and former Ravens quarterback Derek Anderson. This is a game that, this is really the first time in Joe Flacco's career where, the Ravens found themselves in a hole, and he was able to orchestrate the offense in a manner that allowed the Ravens to keep pace and to claw back into this one. This is a back-and-forth game. Baltimore would go out to a 10-0 lead, but Cleveland would come back and make it 27-13 in the third quarter. But, the Ravens, they clawed back. LaRon McClain and Derek Mason touchdowns, as well as a Matt Stover field goal, got the Ravens to a 3-point lead. And the Browns, they would try once again. They would be charging late in the fourth quarter, but Terrell Suggs would intercept Derek Anderson's pass, return it 42 yards for the touchdown, and that was it. The Ravens would win the game, 37-27. Excellent game, very exciting, definitely deserving on this list. All right, number 2 on this list. As far as importance to the Ravens' history, this game maybe we wouldn't expect to be so high. But as far as this game in a vacuum, very exciting game, which is kind of ironic because going into this game, no one was excited about the Ravens going over to Cleveland on Monday Night Football in 2015. This game, the Ravens were coming into this game with only 3 wins, and Browns not much better at 2. Just an awful year injury-wise for the Ravens. I'm sure you don't need reminding. Joe Flacco, Justin Forsett, Terrell Suggs, Steve Smith, all out for this game, all out for the year at this point. There were other injuries as well, too numerous to state. But, yeah, the Ravens, this game, it was on the schedule. It had to be played. Matt Schaub would be quarterbacking for the Ravens, and it would be an interesting game, a back-and-forth affair, seeing some big plays from both this basically preseason lineup of the Ravens and the Browns. And in the fourth quarter, with the Ravens with a 27-20 lead, would see the Browns tie the game. 42-yard pass from Austin Davis to Travis Benjamin, 2 guys that I wouldn't be shocked at all if no one remembers played in the NFL. Tied the game all up, and the Browns would have another shot to get a touchdown late in the game. The Browns, they're driving. They get into field goal range. They look like they're going to kick the ball to win the game on the final play of the game. But the kick is blocked by Brent Urban, picked up by Will Hill for the touchdown. And look, again, not a game that mattered much in Ravens history, but certainly a game that had one of the most traumatic and exciting endings in Ravens history. Ravens win 33-27, certainly deserving on this list. All right, which brings us to number 1 on this list. And how can it not be the 2020 Week 14 night primetime game in Cleveland? Just a back-and-forth affair here. The Ravens, their offense just firing all cylinders. The same thing with the Browns. Both these teams just putting up loads of touchdowns. But, of course, in the fourth quarter, the Ravens, they had a lead. It was a big one. But Lamar Jackson exits the game, and we see Cleveland score 2 touchdowns, suddenly putting this game in doubt. Trace McSorley has to go in for Lamar Jackson, and the offense, he does enough. He moves the ball a bit, but right before the 2-minute warning, tears his ACL, and Lamar Jackson has to come in after the 2-minute warning. First play back, rolls out to his right, finds a streaking Hollywood Brown, gets it in for the touchdown. Ravens take a 42-35 lead, but we know that's not enough. Cleveland comes back and ties it. And then Lamar Jackson, that connection to Mark Andrews, which works so well against Cleveland, gets the Ravens into field goal range. Justin Tucker kicks it 55 yards. Would be dramatic if it's any other kicker in the NFL. Not for Tucker. We know that's automatic. Ravens win this game 47-42. The final 2 points were due to a safety when the Browns were trying to get a miracle touchdown. But, I think when you look at that game, you got to put that number 1 on this list. Most exciting game in Cleveland between the Ravens and the Browns. And that's it. There you go. That's the list for the top games in Cleveland in Ravens history. Just to review the list: number 5, 2002, Week 5. Number 4, 2006, Week 3. Number 3, 2008, Week 9. Number 2, 2015, Week 12. And number 1, 2020, Week 14. All right. Well, we'll have to see what happens this weekend between the Ravens and the Browns. Hopefully the Ravens can get the win in order to keep pace with Cincinnati and continue to keep this team afloat until Lamar Jackson is able to come back. If there's any other games that you think should be on this list, should be highlighted, feel free to add them in the comments. Always great to when people reach out with other content that could be included in the video. And as always, if you like this content, feel free to subscribe on YouTube and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts for great Ravens content all season long.